Hey, what's going on, everyone? We are back for this Sunday NBA slate. We have a two-game slate today, probably the last two-game slate we'll have of the playoffs. So let's make it a good one. Game 7 tonight between the Hawks and the Sixers. We had a awesome game between the Nets and the Bucks last night. Hopefully, we get the kind of a similar game tonight. Also have Game 1 of the Clippers and Suns series. So let's get started. As always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button, subscribe if you have not already. Starting off with the point guard plays today, we have Trae Young checking in at $10,100. Biggest piece of news at the position is Chris Paul is out, which is going to make Devin Booker become a much better play. It's going to make Cameron Payne become probably the best value play on the slate on DraftKings. He's only $4,000, and it's also going to bump up some of the reserves and just some of the other role players like Bridges, like Ayton as well. But Trae Young has to be the guy you start with. He's going to have to do everything for the team offensively. Bogdanovic's status is up in the air. If he is out, then more work for Trae Young. If he's in, then hopefully he can at least make some shots for the Hawks. He's been struggling the last couple of games. But Young, you still expect him to play like north of 40 minutes, probably shoot close to 30 times again. And we'll probably see him rain down a couple of long threes. He's going to have to do everything. He knows he has to do everything for the team offensively, and I think he's going to step up. He's known to play well in big games, and I think he is going to have another great game. He's been one of the most consistent fantasy players this postseason. Then you got a guy that's not been very consistent, Ben Simmons at $7,700. Foul trouble last game, can't really take too much of that, but he did not look that good out there in terms of doing things offensively. 2 of 6 from the floor, 2 of 4 from the free throw line, had a couple of assists, 9 rebounds. Overall, it's just been disappointing for Ben Simmons this series. I would not really go to him. I would rather go to Reggie Jackson, who is 61. You can save $1,600. Go to Reggie Jackson, who's going to have to shoot a bunch, and he's going to have to be like hopefully their second leading scorer, maybe their third leading scorer besides Paul and maybe Terrence Mann if he steps up again. But Jackson's going to play big minutes. He is a guy that's shown to have a big, explosive games at times this postseason. Without Kawhi Leonard, there's just so much room for Reggie Jackson to have very good games. But Cameron Payne is the other guy that you would probably start your lineup with. He is only $4,000. Without Chris Paul, he would step in as the starting point guard. You'd probably see him play 30-plus minutes tonight, and you can probably take a couple of overs on him in some of these betting markets. His over-under is I don't know if it's 11.5 or it might be 13.5 in terms of points. I take the over on that. He's going to be out there, and we've seen him play well. He's a guy that can score and can make some shots. So those are my two favorite point guard plays. Reggie Jackson is close as my third option. And then for value, it's basically maybe you can look to like Maxey or Lou Williams, but they kind of check in well behind these other guys. Over at shooting guard, he can go all the way up for Paul George if he wanted to. He's $10,300. Nothing against that, but when you get Devin Booker at only $89, I'd rather probably go to Devin Booker maybe and pay up at some other spots because Booker's price tag is not really high enough. Paul's price tag has jumped because of Kawhi Leonard being out, but DraftKings didn't really change his price tag too much with Chris Paul being out, and I think that is a mistake. Devin Booker might play some de facto point guard. You see him get some more assists. Has been getting a lot of rebounds this postseason, and he plays a bunch of minutes. You could see him and Paul George play the similar amount of minutes out there on the court, and Devin Booker is just too cheap, $8,900. Still like Paul George, he'd be my second option. Reggie Jackson would be probably one of my favorite in the mid-range at only $6,100. And then for value, it's Terrence Mann. Kevin Huerter, depending on Bogdanovic's news, will be important. And then Seth Curry. If you think he's going to continue to rain down threes, you can look to him as a tournament option. And then once again, it's Maxey or Lou Williams. As your value plays, I'm not going to pay 42 for Furkan. And I think Craig could see some extra minutes. Maybe we'll see creep into the high teens, low 20s without Chris Paul today. They'll just need some other guys off the bench to play more. Small forward, we can look to, I've been always playing Batum and Morris since Kawhi Leonard's been out. Batum's been very good, especially in terms of a defensive perspective. He has 5 stocks last game, 4 the game before that, 4 the game before that. He gets you 7 rebounds basically every night, and he can chip in north of 10 points. So he's pretty consistent, good price tag, and it's going to be out there. Probably will be matched up against, could see him matched up against Crowder, or they could see him put him on Devin Booker at times, because he is probably one of their better defensive players. If they want to give Paul George a bit of a breather on the defensive end and have Paul George do a lot offensively, they could see Batum be locked in on Devin Booker for times during this game, but I think Paul George will also get a share. But Batum at only 57, he looks appealing. You can also go to Morris if you wanted to instead. He is more of a shooter. You're going to need him to hit his shots. Batum can maybe get it done with rebounds and peripheral stats if his shot's not falling. And then I'd look to like Bridges, just because without Chris Paul, he's going to have to, make some more shots, get some more usage from him. And he's been pretty solid in terms of hitting his threes. And then for value, maybe you can look to like Craig or Cam Johnson. Thibault is a defensive player, maybe can hit some threes. Over at power forward, we have Tobias at 79. I have not been playing Tobias at all this series. I don't think that'll start tonight in a Game 7. I would probably look to like Morris at 55, maybe John Collins at 64, and then you have Gallo. Especially if there's no Bogdanovic, Gallinari would probably jump into the starting lineup and give them a lot of shooting and scoring, so he would be interesting at a very reasonable price tag. Over at center, you can go all the way up for Embiid if you wanted to, or you can pay down for like a DeAndre Ayton at home against the Clippers, who are undersized. I think Ayton is... I don't really see the Suns taking Ayton out. I think they're going to do what the Jazz did and just keep their big out there. And Ayton has been very productive this postseason, and without Chris Paul today, you'll see him maybe get you some more shots, but probably continue to get a double-double. He's been doing that most games this postseason. He can get you some defensive stats as well, and if the Clippers do put Morris on him or do put Zubats, those are winnable matchups for Ayton if he wants to have a good game. I think he can. And then the last piece is going to be Reggie Jackson. If I'm not able to get to Paul George, I'd rather get to a couple of Clippers at least, because without Kawhi, you'd expect a couple of these Clippers to have very good games, and hopefully those are Batum and Jackson. I think Paul George will still have a very good game, but maybe he hits like 55, 60 instead of like 75, 80, and we see Batum and Jackson play well. Man is also firmly in the mix, but Jackson has been consistent, except for that game against the Jazz where he was just played 29 minutes. But without Kawhi Leonard, you'd expect Jackson to really be more aggressive on the offensive end, and he had 10 assists last game, so that was great to see. Have the ball in his hands a little bit more. And that's pretty much it. If you're looking for a couple of other plays in the 4K range, my favorite is Man, then Gallo, depending on Bogdanovic news. 3K range, look to like Maxey, Johnson, or like Lou Williams potential plays. Lou Williams would be more appealing if there is no Bogdanovic, because he would get some extra minutes, and they play Young and Lou Williams on the floor together. But that's it for the DraftKings side on FanDuel. We have point guard plays. You have Trae Young, no surprise, as your most expensive guy, and there's a big drop-off between Trae Young and Ben Simmons in terms of price. He's 10-3, Simmons is 78, but Trae Young hasn't even been close. Ben Simmons hasn't even been close to matching the production of Trae Young this postseason. But Reggie Jackson is 55, Cam Payne is 5K. You could go with a couple of cheap plays at point guard, but I think I'd rather go to Reggie Jackson just because he's affordable. Basically looking at Jackson, Cam Payne, and Trae Young as my three options here. At shooting guard, it is Devin Booker, is way too underpriced on FanDuel. He's only $7,900. Without Chris Paul, he has to be one of the two shooting guards that I play. Just way too cheap. Other plays would be Paul George, Terrence Mann at 44, fits in pretty nicely here. Kevin Huerter at only 42. You have a good amount of options here. And then if you wanted to go pretty sneaky, you can look to like Craig or Maxey. Small forward, it is Nick Batum at 62. Then you can go Gallo or Bridges. And those are the three options. If you wanted to punt, you can go to Cam Johnson or Thibault. But I will continue to roll with Batum, especially on FanDuel, where you get those extra bonuses for blocks and steals. He fits in nicely at the small forward position. Power forward here, we can go to Morris at 64. Collins, once again, Collins and Tobias' price tag is the same from last game. I think Tobias maybe looks a little bit better on FanDuel just because he's cheaper than Collins. But we'll see what happens. Once again, power forward has been pretty ugly of a position. There's only 4 options here. Maybe Sarge if you wanted to go pretty sneaky. But for me, I will hope that Morris kind of steps up again. He started off the game really well. Last game, he had like 7 quick points, and then he didn't score the rest of the way. Terrence Mann took over. Expect Morris to maybe chip in like 15 to 20 points in this one. And then over at center, couple of options here. You can go all the way up for Embiid if you wanted to. And then you have Ayton at 7,000. Those are the two main pieces I'm looking at. I don't think I want to play Capella tonight. But for me, let's see how much money we have. If we play Embiid, leads with 57. That is fine. Or you can go to Ayton at 7K and then maybe pay up for a couple of other spots. But I'll probably just go with Embiid. At home in a Game 7, 11-2 on FanDuel fits nicely because there's only a couple of spots, and you can go with like Campaign as your other point guard play, and then maybe go with like a cheaper shooting guard option. So it makes it work if you wanted to. But that is it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Best of luck tonight, and I'll catch you all next time.